This next capability I'm going to talk about is really one that you can only take from start to finish if you know how to program or you're a software engineer or computer scientist. But you can use it in conjunction with somebody else who is really good at those things if you aren't a programmer or computer scientist. So if you're an organization that has a bunch of programmers or you have a friend that's a programmer, this is a way that you could do that. Now, what is this technique? It's a very exciting one from the perspective of software development. So one of the challenges that we have is we have all these little tools that we would like to have to help us out. So, all day long when I'm working, I'm thinking it'd be really nice to have a piece of software that did this and simplified this process for me. And sometimes as a software engineer, I'll go and take the time to actually write the software to do that. But Code Interpreter creates an intriguing new possibility where we can actually turn a conversation with Code Interpreter into software. Now, if you are not a programmer, if you can't read the code, you should not go all the way through with this because you have to be able to look at the code and know if it's going to work correctly. If it's safe to run on your computer, it could delete all the files for all you know if you can't read the code. We 100% know that large language models can make mistakes, and you need to pay attention to the code that comes out of what I'm going to show you. And if you can't read it and understand it, you should not proceed. You'll need to go find a programmer to help the rest of the way. But a programmer at some point, a human software developer, needs to be involved in the analysis for what I'm going to show you. However, it's really exciting. So let's take a look at what we've got. So this is an original conversation that I had where I took a movie and I extracted 10 different frames from the movie. I then went and displayed the images. I looked at it. I'm having this whole conversation. I resized the images. And I did a bunch of other things. I turned each image into grayscale. I increased the contrast by 30%. And I turned the images into an animated GIF. I also created a PowerPoint presentation with one image per slide. Now, I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could take this whole process so that I could repeat it? Now, I've repeated exactly this type of process for creating tools to help me with the creation of these videos and cataloging it. For example, automatically going and taking my videos and measuring how long they are, creating CSV files for them, doing other interesting things that then help me along. But any kind of conversation that you go and have with Code Interpreter, you can turn into a piece of software in most cases that you can then run completely separately from Code Interpreter, and you can even have it call out to OpenAI's APIs to replace the part where GPT-4 was present in the conversation. And then the last step in this thing, I created the PowerPoint, and then I also created a CSV to catalog all this stuff. So here's what I'm going to do. This is the real magic now. And again, if you are not a programmer, you need to find a programmer if you're going to take this approach. If you're a programmer, you're going to be able to rapidly accelerate the pace that you can create your own personal tools, because any conversation you have with Code Interpreter that yields a good result, you'll be able to kickstart a piece of software for yourself. So here's what I'm going to say. Turn this process into a Python program that I can download and run on my computer and provide the paths to the documents as command line arguments. Zip up the program for me to download. Now note, you could have also gone and said create some GUI application or something else, anything that it has the tools to create, but I'm just going really simple. I'm just saying turn it into a Python program. You can also tell it to replace calls to GPT-4 with calls to OpenAI's API for GPT-4, the completion API. But I'm not going to do that here because I don't need it. And so what does it do? It says, sure, I can help with that. It's going to create a script that extracts all the frames from the video, resizes the images, converts the images to grayscale, creates a PowerPoint presentation of the images, catalogs them in a CSV file, and makes an animated GIF from the images. It then gives us the command that we're going to need to install all the Python packages for this piece of software, and then finally it gives us the zip file, which I have actually gone and downloaded, and I'm going to show you what this thing looks like now. So here is the application that it has built for me. I'm going to now run it on a new movie that I did not do before, and this thing is going to run for a second. It takes a few seconds to do all of the work that's in here, and then we should be able to see that it's produced a number of different outputs. So it created the extracted frames. So if we go and looked at that, we have all the extracted frames from the video. We can go and we see also that we have this frames presentation, which is all of the individual frames put into a PowerPoint presentation. We have the resized frames. We have the catalog image in CSV. Now, note something. I said it's really important to have a programmer look at this. And the reason is because it's not perfect. You know, one of the things it was supposed to do was to create an animated GIF, and it didn't do that. Now, as a developer, I can easily go and look at the program before I run it, which I did, and I saw that there was nothing problematic in it. I read the code. And then two, I could go and then say, oh, it doesn't have that animated GIF or whatever it is, and I could modify it and work with it to get it there. Now, the key thing about this is it turned the conversation into a piece of software. And that flow of that conversation dictated the requirements for the software, and the user was interactively developing it. As I was building, now if we go back and look at the conversation, as I'm actually going through and running through it, I'm actually going to see incrementally building what I want the conversation to look like. I'm essentially doing the process of trying and building it incrementally and testing it out. Here I'm seeing an intermediate output. I'm then getting to look at the intermediate resized images and check that it's doing what I want. And the key thing is it's producing Python code along the way, right, to do all this stuff. So when it gets to the end down here and I'm telling it to go and create the final Python program, really all it has to do is stitch together all the code that it's already created and modularize it a little bit. Add places where all these paths and things can be taken into the program as command line parameters rather than starting from scratch. Now, if you're not a programmer, how do you use this capability? One, you could kickstart a conversation, you can download it then, and then you could take it to a programmer. You could go hire a freelance developer or some development shop to then review that, modify it if it doesn't work exactly like you want. But think of how much farther down the path you are. You can show them, here's my requirements. Here's the conversation I had where it did exactly what I wanted. Here's the initial Python program that it produced for me. Now, go and check that it's going to line up with what I just did. Here's what I want it to do, and here's what it produced. Do a quick audit of it, read through the code, test it inside a container, make sure it looks safe and reasonable. Run it on some test cases for me and debug it, and run it on my original test case. And then if it looks good, give it back to me, right? It's a different style of software development. It's going to create a new paradigm that's really exciting for creating these smaller tools. And we can probably do that much less expensively than when we start from scratch and we're trying to collect all the requirements and we're trying to get everybody on the same page about what it's supposed to do and how it's supposed to work. Now we're actually having the end user build up kind of the process and the flow of what they wanted to do and interact with it through Code Interpreter and generate the initial starting point for the software before taking it to the programmer. And the conversation itself becomes a set of requirements, and the software becomes the initial starting point for the developer. So hopefully they don't have to do a whole lot to get it into a final form of a usable tool. Now, if you're a software developer like me, this is awesome because you can take the conversation, you can output Python, and you're way ahead of the game. Now, in this case, I would have to go and work with it a little bit to fix that part that it wasn't giving me the animated GIF I wanted, and look for it and make sure there's no other bugs. I'd test it, do all the normal things I would do if I got a piece of software or if I had somebody else write a piece of software for me. But it's a really exciting capability that I think is worth talking about. Now again, I want to warn you, if you are not a programmer, you should not download these things and run them blindly. And if you are a programmer, you should not blindly trust the software that comes out of it. You should download it. You should read all the code first, make sure you're comfortable with what it's doing, and you should test it in some safe environment, like inside of a container or something else, if you're at all concerned about what it's going to be doing. Now, in most cases, these things are going to be fairly straightforward, smaller bits of software, fairly easy to audit, and I've created a lot of great tools for myself using this process. It's something really exciting that I think is kind of a new style of software development that's going to be enabled because of Code Interpreter.